I'm part of the negative side. My partner and I are on the side of that we should continue this plan of raising the minimum wage up to $15. The first affirmative construction states that the first point, increasing the minimum wage to 15, will have substantial harmful effects. Well, based on a study that I looked up online, 75% of Americans support raising the federal minimum wage, including 92% of Democrats, 73% of independents, 53% of Republicans, and it proves that it's a little bit of mix of everyone from everywhere. So that should say something as well. Also, based off of January 2015, a Heart Research Association, 82% of Americans support automatic upward annual adjustments to the federal minimum wage. The first, my opponents state that increasing the minimum wage to 15 will have harmful effects, like raising costs of living and inflation be negative. Well, inflation will always be an issue. Eventually, we'll all be making enough to live off depending what we do, whether it's $1 a year, a couple cents a month. It won't make a difference. Based off of Forbes.com, the impact of inflation of the 1970s and 80s was hardly even, and this is always the case. When you pay for something, the person on the other side of the register is also getting paid more. 29 states plus the District of Columbia have set minimum wages above the federal level, with floors ranging from $7.50 in Maine and New Mexico to $10 in Massachusetts and California to $10.50 in Washington, D.C. And it's rising to $11.50 in July. If they're raising the minimum wage just like we are, like if their plan is intact and it's in action and they're going forth with it, it should tell us that it's obviously working. There should be a reason why they're doing this type of things, based off of the Washington Post 2015. So my opponent states, question, so what good does raising the wage do? Well, in Wisconsin, Richard Curtin, president of VHS Cleaning Service in Ashland, Wisconsin, states that the increased income can also make for more reliable workers, just like my partner said. It reduces the stress that many minimum wage workers experience as they work extra jobs, just how we are familiar with how we have to work, whether it's at a little store, Burger King, any type of store. We struggle with the amount of money, and since we're students, we struggle with finance, like school, finances, cars, anything like that. Outings as well. They have to also reduces the stress, extra jobs, juggle daycare in his case, work when sick or don't receive needed medical care, causing further distress later. And so he states that I support the minimum wage increase, not only because it is the right thing to do, but it is good for the business. In this case, more than 7% of Wisconsin workers will receive a raise. If they're doing okay with the increase, then I don't see why our state can't do it as well. My opponents state that one can conclude that the damages to raising the minimum wage to $1 every year until reaching $15 will cause irreversible and have a counterproductive effect on our economy, and they use the example of McDonald's. Well, a minimum wage increase at this time could be the most important factor in empowering our economy out of the recession, states Camille Morin, an owner of Paralegal Services in Louisiana. The higher the wage an employee receives, the more income he or she has to purchase goods and service for their family, which is indeed the best medicine for our economy. So based off of this first-hand evidence testimony that Camille Morin says, a counterproductive effect on our economy isn't always the case. It is actually a benefit. It's quite simple with a raising wage, thus the employer is forced to charge higher prices for their products and services in order to keep their business open, thus causing inflation, which I believe is not entirely true. Prices go up, people will get paid even more, and then inflation is not always going to happen since we're all getting paid. Even if there is an inflation, we have many different options out there for alternatives, such as if you're buying groceries from a Fresh and Easy, which costs more than a Walmart brand, then obviously you can change your choices, and it's the same thing. And eventually, if it does inflate over time drastically, it will not jump straight up to $5, $10. It'll go up little by little a year, which means that the stores won't have to increase the products so much, and business will not have this issue. We will all be on the same ride, on this roller coaster. My advocate states the next point, that this wage increase will cause the loss of jobs for unskilled workers and jobs in general and lead to more poverty. And they also state that it's hard for job employment. the jobs for unskilled workers will begin to disappear, and the loss of employment and loss of employment opportunities will push some families further into poverty. Well, for example, unskilled jobs will always be available, just like the jobs here in fast food places, restaurants, stores. So I don't see where the problem is if there's always going to need people in demand to work those cashiers, serve those people, fix those carts, and organize those clothing. With this being said, the U.S. Department of Labor states that it is actually a myth. Increasing the minimum wage will cause people to lose their jobs, which is a myth. In a letter to President Obama and congressional leaders urging to minimum wage increase, more than 600 economists, including 7 Nobel Prize winners, wrote, "In recent years, there have been important developments in the academic literature on the effects of increases in the minimum wage on employment, with the weight of evidence now showing that increases in the minimum wage have little or no negative effect on the employment of minimum wage workers. Even during times of weakness in the labor market, research suggests that a minimum wage increase could have a small stimulative effect on the economy as low-wage workers spend on their additional earnings, raising demand on job growth and providing some help on the job fronts." Based off what 600 economists and 7 Nobel Prize winners wrote, I believe that it's important to take in consideration that what they say to be ethical and reliable. And to speak about poverty, a person working 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year at the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour would earn $14,500 plus tax. This is actually enough to put a single earner over the poverty line while still being eligible for various benefits like Medicaid and earned income tax credit. And in fact, after comparing income with poverty thresholds, the only way someone earning minimum wage could live in poverty would be not to work full time. And this is all based off of the Foundation for Economic Education of 2015. So with this being said, overall, the raising of minimum wage to $15 is actually a benefit. There is no reason why we, California, shouldn't raise it. We should proceed with the plan we originally have because it won't affect everyone. Just how our industry is going, so should we, and it'll work. Thank you.